Dạ vâng. Cảm ơn chị Khoa Trang. Thưa quý anh chị, đề tài của buổi chia sẻ ngày hôm nay là nguồn lực để vươn ra toàn cầu, tức là Resources for Going Global. Thì theo thống kê của US Small Business Association, tức là SBA đó, thì doanh nghiệp nhỏ từ 500 nhân viên hoặc ít hơn tạo lên đến 99,9% của các công ty này tạo lên các doanh nghiệp của Mỹ, và 99,7% của các công ty này thì có nhân viên được trả lương. Thì trong số việc mà làm mới được tạo ra từ năm 1995 cho đến 2020 á, thì các doanh nghiệp nhỏ này chiếm tầm 62 cho đến 62%, tức là tầm 12,7 triệu so với 7 triệu của các doanh nghiệp lớn. Thành ra cái một báo cáo của SBA vào năm 2019 cho thấy là các doanh nghiệp nhỏ chiếm đến 44% hoạt động kinh tế của Hoa Kỳ. Thì nếu mà không có các doanh nghiệp nhỏ như thế này thì chúng ta có thể tưởng tượng là cái nền kinh tế và cái lực lượng lao động của Mỹ nó sẽ là một cái khung cảnh như thế nào. Thì cái điều đó nó nói lên cái tầm quan trọng của doanh nghiệp nhỏ trong nền kinh tế của Mỹ, và vì vậy chính phủ Mỹ đã và đang tiếp tục đầu tư rất nhiều cho các doanh nghiệp nhỏ với các chính sách và các nguồn lực hỗ trợ cho các công ty nhỏ. Thì bài chia sẻ ngày hôm nay là để giúp các doanh nghiệp Việt biết những cái nguồn lực có sẵn để khi nào mà chúng ta cần thì mình biết cần phải làm gì và đi đâu để lấy những cái resource đó. Thưa các anh chị, khách mời của chia sẻ của chúng ta ngày hôm nay là ông Jim Mayfield, giám đốc Trung tâm hỗ trợ xuất khẩu tại Hoa Kỳ, tại quận Cam, trực thuộc Phòng Quản trị Thương mại Quốc tế dưới quyền của Bộ Thương mại Mỹ. Ông bắt đầu làm cho US Export Assistance Center tại Irvine, California năm 2012 và sau đó trở thành giám đốc vào năm 2020. Thì trước đó ông đã làm tại Việt Nam, tại lãnh sự quán Mỹ tại Sài Gòn vào năm 2009 đến 2012. Thì lúc đó ông là Principal Commercial Officer và cũng đã làm cho phòng thương vụ Mỹ tại Hồng Kông, San Francisco, Thượng Hải, Bắc Kinh và ở Washington DC. Thì trong những nơi mà ông đã công tác thì danh mục khách hàng xúc tiến thương mại bao gồm nhiều lĩnh vực như là xe hơi, sản xuất, công nghệ môi trường, năng lượng, xây dựng, cơ sở hạ tầng, du lịch và các sản phẩm tiêu dùng. Xin mời các anh chị chào đón ông Jim Mayfield. Jim, I suspect you understood all that I said.
I just heard my name and I heard Department of Commerce.
That's right. And now we welcome you to VBI Global's first meeting in March. And we are now ready for your presentation on resources going global. So go right ahead.
Thank you so much. Let me see if I can share my screen here really quickly. Okay, now can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, when we tested it earlier, it worked better in the PowerPoint slide versus the presentation slide. So I hope this is okay for everybody. So good morning. Thank you so much for the invitation to join VBI Global. I was sharing earlier that I worked between 2009 and 2012 in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, where I worked at the US consulate. And my job there was to promote trade between the United States and Vietnam, and to work very closely with both American business people and Vietnamese business people to encourage collaboration and cooperation. And it was a wonderful experience. And it's a real pleasure to be back with your group today to introduce a little bit more about my organization and our resources in the hopes that we can continue to promote that type of collaboration between the United States and Vietnam, and between the business people in both of our countries, but also in other countries around the world. So just to start, and my presentation today will be very brief, but just to start, I wanted to introduce my organization. I work for the US Department of Commerce, actually a very small agency called the US Commercial Service. And our primary mission is to promote US made products and services around the world. So we're primarily focused on helping companies in the US export products and services all over the world. And to do this, we have offices throughout the United States. So I saw on the list today that there are people dialing in from Vietnam, from Washington, DC. I think I saw Louisiana, Tustin, California, many other cities. And so I hope that you can, through this presentation, maybe identify resources that will be available in your local area. And if you need assistance connecting with my counterparts in different cities, I would be glad to assist. But our mission is really to work with business people across the country to help them figure out their export strategy, find overseas markets, get prepared to learn all of the different things they need in order to be successful with all aspects of exporting. And one of the important parts of this is that we also have offices overseas. And so the way we work is that, for example, I'm in Irvine, California. I work with companies in my local area. We identify which markets they want to export to, and then I connect them with my counterparts in those overseas offices. So this slide shows our global footprint. And unfortunately, I cannot zoom in, but in Vietnam, we have two offices, one in Hanoi and one in Ho Chi Minh City. And our offices are located inside the US Embassy in Hanoi and inside the US Consulate General in Ho Chi Minh City. And we have similar offices all around the world. And so if you are dialing in from the United States, this is your global network. You can tap into our global network by connecting with our local office in your city, and then using our resources in our network to expand to whatever country you're looking to do business in. So here's just a summary of my agency and the specific services that we offer. And I'm going to highlight in blue, there are some services that we offer to overseas business people. And then there are some services that we offer to American business people. So for the American businesses, that's in dark blue. And they're basically 4 different services. What we call export counseling, which is basically advice on all aspects of exporting. Market intelligence, which is market research and information. Business matchmaking. This is what I did when I was in Vietnam. We did a lot of business matchmaking, helping companies find potential partners. And this is something that is relevant to all of the people who dialed in from Vietnam today, and I can explain a little bit more about that. And commercial diplomacy. This is where American companies are bidding on a foreign government project, and the US Department of Commerce has some tools to provide formal assistance. And then the last bullet point is foreign direct investment, and this is really geared towards international businesses. And so, for example, on today's call for Vietnamese companies that are looking to invest in the US, we have a number of services to assist you to get started in the US and to make those connections that will help with your investment. But if I could go back to the business matching for just a second, this is probably, I would say, our main program. And this is how it works. If you're an American company and you're looking to find a distributor or looking to find a customer or to set up a sales channel, oh, sorry about that, set up a sales channel, you can contact us and we will help you do all kinds of market research. We will help you find potential prospects, and we will make introductions to you to those counterparts in the countries where you want to find that distributor. So for example, in Vietnam, we would work with different types of American products. It could be consumer goods, could be industrial products, could be medical devices. And we would go out and our team in Vietnam would research distributors, sales reps, maybe value-added resellers, anybody that you are looking to build a relationship with to set up that sales channel. Most of that service is geared towards the American businesses who need the assistance. However, if you are in Vietnam and you have experience with distribution of products and services, maybe you have a certain sector expertise, you have your own network, what we would like to do is introduce you to our team in Vietnam so that when those American companies are looking for partners, we can also know who you are and we could introduce you to those American companies who are looking for your expertise. And that's the kind of matchmaking that we do. So For the companies and for the business people that are here who are in Vietnam, that's something that maybe we can discuss further after the call, is introducing you to my counterparts in Hanoi or Ho Chi Minh City, and making sure that my colleagues know who you are, so that if new opportunities come up, we can help make more matches. So this next part of my presentation isn't really anything new, especially to the group here. I think you all may be more familiar with the Asia region even than I am. But I wanted to just share 2 or 3 slides to explain where my clients are focused and why they're so interested in developing opportunities in Asia in general, and specifically Southeast Asia. And Vietnam, of course, is a really primary market of interest to a lot of my clients. So the first is something that we all know. Asia is where a very large percentage of the global population lives. And so this represents a significant market opportunity. One important piece, and I think you all know this as well, maybe more than me, is that Asia is where the middle class is growing and will continue to grow for the next several years. And so that middle class is large and getting larger. And so that creates a tremendous growth opportunity in demand for all kinds of products. Another thing that my clients are tracking is the fact that there are so many very large cities throughout Asia. Cities defined as being more than 10 million people. Asia has more of them than anywhere else in the world. And what's important about that is the concentration of those markets and the concentration of demand for all kinds of products and services. And so one of the things that those large cities need is infrastructure. And so Asia is driving demand for a lot of different types of infrastructure. And this is where we do a lot of work to make matches between American companies and Vietnamese companies or other companies throughout Asia, is because there are a lot of really excellent technologies in the US that support the development of infrastructure, including power generation, transportation, things like electric vehicles, charging stations and things like that, but also things like subways and trains and aircraft and air traffic control, a lot of different transportation technologies. And then of course, things like telecommunications, water supply, wastewater treatment, and other kinds of infrastructure. And American companies are very competitive in these areas. And this is where there's a great potential for collaboration between the US and other countries. Here are just a little bit more detailed example of some of the types of infrastructure that we work with. And we work with companies in each of these categories. It just depends on what the need is in the different countries and in the different regions of each country. So some areas might be focusing on some of the primary infrastructure like roads, bridges, schools, hospitals, whereas other countries and other cities might be focusing more on what we would call quality of life types of things, higher quality healthcare, higher quality education, technology, elder care, and then everything in between. One of the big areas I worked on, especially when I was in Vietnam, was healthcare. And at that time, Vietnam was building a very large amount of new healthcare facilities. They were trying to attract the healthcare expertise, but also the hardware, the technology, the equipment, building hospitals to upgrade the nation's healthcare system. So this is an area where, especially in my area in Southern California, there are a lot of healthcare technologies, and we're working to figure out how we can help those companies introduce their products throughout Asia. So that could be a good area for collaboration in VBI. And then lastly, this is another area that I think is very important. This is especially relevant for American companies, and that is the industrial development. So one of the things that I've observed in Vietnam is that Vietnam has attracted a lot of manufacturing from throughout the world. So international investors have been building new manufacturing facilities or moving their facilities to Vietnam, or Vietnamese companies have been growing their ability to contract manufacture for global brands. We saw it when I was there in everything from footwear and apparel and garments to electronics and microelectronics, as well as medical devices. And so as Vietnam continues to develop its manufacturing sector, that creates a huge opportunity for American companies to cooperate by providing the raw materials, the electronic components, or other equipment, machine tools, and other things that go into all of those factories. And what's really interesting about California is that we have a lot of companies that provide what I would call these industrial inputs. The thing about these products is that they all need distributors. So if you're a Vietnamese company and you have expertise in supplying products to factories, whether it's raw materials or equipment or machinery, we're looking for those types of distributors to make those matches between the American suppliers and helping them find the customers in countries like Vietnam. So that's an area that I spent a lot of time on in Southern California. Now I'm going to switch gears here very briefly before I conclude and maybe open to questions. Is if you are an American company and you are based in the US and you're looking to export, you may be eligible for an SBA grant called the State Trade Expansion Program. We call it STEP, a STEP grant. And basically the SBA gives grant money to almost every state. And each state makes that grant money available to small businesses to help cover some of the costs with your international marketing. So you could use this grant. I think every state is a little different. In California, you can get up to $5,000 to help translate your materials into international languages, to help set up international websites, to hire interpreters, to go to international expos and trade shows, and use a lot of different types of marketing assistance. So the SBA STEP grant program is a really good opportunity for American companies. Another program that we're doing, in fact, next week, I'll be traveling and we have delegations from throughout the US are traveling to Southeast Asia, is a program called Trade Winds. And Trade Winds is a national level, very large business delegation that we take every year to a different part of the world. So last year, we took a big delegation to the Middle East. This year, we're taking the delegation to Southeast Asia. And we have a major business forum, which this year will be held in Bangkok. But before and after the forum, we are taking delegations of companies for business matchmaking in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, the Philippines, and also Vietnam. So you may have seen a little bit about Trade Winds. We have a delegation going to Vietnam on March 9th and 10th. We've got two groups, a small group going to Hanoi and a larger group, about, I think, 15 companies going to Ho Chi Minh City. So just an example of some of the things that we do. We try to help American companies connect with all of these different resources that we offer, the assistance and grant programs like the SBA. And then, of course, our overseas offices try to build up their relationships with local companies, distributors, customers, and experts in those countries like Vietnam, so that we can make those matches as much as possible. And then the last slide is just my contact information. This is our team in Orange County. We have similar teams throughout the country. And so if you'd like to connect with your local Export Assistance Center, please send me an email. You can check our website, which is trade.gov. And from there, you can find your local office, or I'd be glad to put you in touch. So with that, I will stop sharing and take any questions.
Thank you so much, Jim, for your insights on the resources of what the U.S. federal government can do to assist small businesses here in the U.S. regarding to exporting U.S. products overseas. And then, before we get into the Q&A, I would like to do a quick summary of the key points in Vietnamese to our audience here. Thưa quý anh chị, trước khi mà chúng ta bắt đầu vào cái phần hỏi đáp thì chúng tôi xin tóm tắt những cái điểm chính mà ông Jim đã nêu ra. Thì thứ nhất là cái phòng thương vụ Mỹ có thể giúp các doanh nghiệp Mỹ về việc xuất khẩu và hỗ trợ các công ty quốc tế mà muốn đầu tư vào Mỹ. Và thưa quý vị, đây cũng là một cái dịch vụ mà VBI Global cũng có thể hỗ trợ song song cùng ạ. Và thứ hai là châu Á và khu vực là cái khu vực xuất khẩu rất là quan trọng do là quy mô của dân số, dưới trung lưu ngày càng tăng, nhu cầu cơ sở hạ tầng, vân vân, và rất là nhiều cơ hội hợp tác giữa các công ty Mỹ và các công ty quốc tế khác. Và một lý do nữa là các lĩnh vực quan tâm và tiềm năng hợp tác chính ở châu Á bao gồm như là những cái sản phẩm tiêu dùng, cơ sở hạ tầng, chăm sóc sức khỏe, sản phẩm công nghiệp, vân vân. Và để liên kết với họ thì có thể qua được những cái văn phòng địa phương tại Mỹ. Ở đây thì họ có văn phòng gần như là trong mỗi một tiểu bang, hoặc là một số quốc gia khác như 80 quốc gia khác trên thế giới. Thì mình có thể liên hệ. Nếu mà ở Việt Nam mình muốn đưa hàng mình sang Mỹ, mình muốn cần support thêm thì mình có thể liên lạc, có thể là qua VBI Global hoặc là có thể đi qua cái văn phòng thương vụ Mỹ ở tại cái quốc gia sở tại của mình, và lần nữa cũng có thể đồng hành cùng VBI Global để có thể liên kết. Và sau đó thì nói chung đó là tóm tắt những cái ý chung của ông Jim. Và sau đây thì chúng tôi mời anh chị nào có câu hỏi xin giơ tay để chúng tôi họ gọi, hoặc là anh chị có thể cho câu hỏi vào chat box để mà mình có thể theo dõi được. Xin mời anh chị nào có câu hỏi không ạ? Let's see if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much. And I should have started by saying, I wish I could speak Vietnamese, and I appreciate your assistance to help me communicate.
No, I think everybody here is bilingual. I just want to make sure that all of your points got referred 100% or got translated.
Con Vinh đang giơ tay á, chị Liễu.
Okay, we have one person with question here. And Vin?
I see a question
Yes, good
in the
morning,
chat.
Jim.
Okay,
yes.
yep.
First question. Based on your experience, Jim, what are the two or the few most difficulties facing American companies going overseas?
Okay, yeah, really good question. So I think the first is just that the risk environment is so different from the United States. And the United States market is so big. A lot of my clients have been very successful growing to a very significant size by only working in the United States. And so to make a transition from the US market into any international market, it's just a different business environment, legal environment, risk environment, cultural relationships. So first, it's just making that first step and realizing that it is so different, but that you can make, or you can take a lot of good steps to adjust to that new risk environment. I think that's probably number one. I think number two is probably the relationship environment. Relationships are so important everywhere in the world. I think they, in some cases, are important in the US too, but they're probably more important overseas as a way of managing risk, right? You develop deeper relationships with the people that you're going to do business with. You understand who they are, how they fit into the business environment, and people will spend more time building those relationships overseas than they will in the US typically. And so what I found when I was working in Vietnam in particular is that it took more time to get to know everybody, to build up a level of trust where people were comfortable to do the business. And that takes more time. So I think that's a little bit of a challenging transition because it's a little bit different from what is required here.
Very good. Jim, there's a question regarding to, is it okay for us to share your presentation afterward to the members, to the guests?
Yes, please.
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do that, GETV. The other question I have for you regarding to the upcoming trade missions that you have going into Asia, and then of course the later part or the beginning of the part, you'll be going to Vietnam as well. Is it too late for our members, if they're interested, that they can join, or what is the requirement in order to join that trade mission?
So there's two parts of our trade mission. There's what we call the B2B matchmaking, where we help companies find partners and potential distributors in each of the countries. That is too late. The registration for that closed back in early January, because it takes us about 6 weeks to 2 months to do all the research, to do the matchmaking. The forum, we just closed registration for the forum, but if you're really interested in this, send me an email, and I'll put my email in the chat just so to make sure it's very handy for everybody. Send me an email. I'd be glad to talk to the forum organizers to see if there's any additional space. There's probably two parts to that. The forum is in Bangkok, so it requires travel, and that's where we have about 120 companies are traveling for that forum. And then there are these what we call spin-off trade missions to the different cities. So for example, there's a group of 10 to 15 companies that will be in Ho Chi Minh City, and there will be a reception and there will be some networking there. So that could be another opportunity. That we'd have to connect you with our offices in Ho Chi Minh City.
Gotcha.
Or whatever city you're located in.
Yeah.
And so I see the question from
For the
Phoebe.
people who are on here that are interested in possibly participating, can you provide them the dates at the forum?
Yeah, the forum, and I'll put it into the chat. Let's see if I can put it in for everybody. The forum is in Bangkok, and it will be held March 12 to 15. And the Vietnam stop is Thursday and Friday, March 9 and 10.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any other questions from anybody?
And I see Hong Lam is asking about email and website. So I'll put that in here as well.
I have a question. It's me again, Jim. How can we as an organization collaborate with your office? Or is there any program, or is there a possibility that we can collaborate down the road? Because we, our members, we cater mostly to small, middle-sized companies in Vietnam or in the US.
So really good question. I think there are lots of opportunities to collaborate. As an organization, I think one idea, and Leo and I talked about this the other day, we have offices, for example, in Houston. We have offices in Washington, D.C. So we can make those connections to see where the mutual interests are. One of our goals as an organization is to make sure that our resources are accessible to every community in the United States. And your membership represents an important community that we want to make sure has full access to all of the different resources and expertise and things that we're offering to help all of those businesses within your community. So we want to figure out how to do that. And it might just be that we introduce you to more of my counterparts in different cities. We start maybe at that level and work our way into whatever programs and whatever services might be valuable to you. The second is for your members in Vietnam. If you have like a chairperson in Vietnam, someone who is responsible for the part of your group there, we can introduce them to my counterpart at the US Embassy in Hanoi or the US Consulate in Ho Chi Minh City to build those relationships. And then third, we have within our organization, we have an Asia team. So these are all of my colleagues who are focused on doing business in Asia. And we have an Asia team, and we have an Asia team leader. And maybe we can set up a meeting for your chairperson and our team leader to talk about programming that's focused on Asia to see how we might work together.
Very good. There's a question that came in. It says from Anne, she wants to know about revolving loan for exporting the agriculture products such as soybean from the US to Vietnam.
Yeah, so, okay, so there's two possible loan programs, and I'll put them into the chat. One is a US Export-Import Bank export finance program. They have a lot of different finance programs. One of the best things that I found with EXIM is that they're very flexible and they're really trying to work to meet the needs of exporters. They also, in addition to their loan programs for basically financing the customer, right? They also have an export credit insurance program, which reduces the risk for US exporters, which sometimes the export credit insurance. So this is basically how it works. You take out an insurance policy when you want to export something to a customer overseas. And then when that transaction is insured, it's easier to get a loan from the bank because the risk for the bank has gone down since the policy is now insured, or excuse me, since the receivable is now insured. That's one really valuable program. Oh, I see Song has put XM.gov in the chat, which is exactly what I was talking about. Another program is the US Department of Agriculture. They also have agricultural loans. It's a different agency from mine, but they're a really excellent group. And if you need assistance connecting with them, I don't know exactly how their loan programs work, but I do know that they offer a number of really excellent financial tools specifically for the export of agricultural products from the US. And I can research that, and if you're interested, you can email me and we can get you connected to it.
Thank you so much. And regarding to your point, connecting to your colleagues in the other parts of the United States, I actually reached out to David Taylor, who's based out of Houston, regarding to our upcoming conference and expo in Houston. And so we're in continued conversation to see how we can get that local U.S. commercial service to get involved in that upcoming event in April.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Now, I did see Song Win in Virginia just put the USDA programs for agricultural loans in the chat. So thank you very much, Song. You're very quick on the research. I appreciate that very much because I don't have access to all of my multiple screens today. So thank you for that. And those are the kinds of questions that we like to try to answer. And if my agency doesn't have the information that you need, we are part of an ecosystem of other partners. So it could be the SBA, it could be the Department of Agriculture, it could be the Ex-Im Bank, could be the Small Business Development Center. There are a lot of really great resources, and we're part of that ecosystem. We would be glad to help make the connections and make those introductions.
Yep. Great. Thank you so much, Jim. Are there any other questions? Anh chị nào còn câu hỏi nữa không ạ? I think we're good with questions for now. And if there are additional questions, we definitely have your contact information that we can definitely go back to you, Jim. And once again, thank you so much for your time to come here to share all these wonderful resources for our group.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It really is an honor to meet you and to be a part of your group this morning. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And if I can't answer your question, I'll do my best to introduce you to my counterparts who can. Thank you so much and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks again, Jim. Take care. Bye-bye.